What's going on, everybody? It's your man Chuck Creekmur, aka Jigsaw, here at One World Studios. Now, when we have guests, a lot of times it's easy to say who they are, what they mean to the culture. But right now, we are here with MC Debbie D, and I find it very hard to quantify how important you are to the culture of hip hop. But for simplicity's sake, I'll say you are a pioneer in the culture. And without you, a lot of us wouldn't be here right now. Is that good enough?
That's good enough. I'll just add to that, I'm also one of the matriarchs of the culture. Because everybody's kind of claiming that pioneer title.
Yeah.
But there's a few select girls from the 70s, from the Bronx, right? The home of hip-hop, that are matriarchs. We're the mothers of the movement.
Okay, good. Now, we're gonna get into all of that. But give people, because some of the audience here, it's a mixed audience. You know, all hip-hop talks to all facets of the culture in the audience, young, old, middle school, et cetera, et cetera. Tell people who you are.
Ooh. MC Debbie D, again, is one of the pioneers, one of the first female MCs in the culture from the South Bronx. I'm also the first female soloist in hip-hop culture. And let's see, what else could I say? Also one of the members of the Juice Crew, which a lot of people may not know. One of the Us Girls from the movie Beach Street. So I'm sure you'll break it all down.
Of course.
But yeah, that kind of covers the full gamut.
Now, you just jumped ahead. So let's talk about Beach Street first, right? Because Beach Street, for me, being a native of Delaware, was the first introduction to you, and obviously Lisa Lee and and Sha Rock, and a bunch of people too. What did that mean to you? That movie, that seminal movie about hip hop culture, it included almost every aspect of hip hop. It did include every aspect.
All of the elements, absolutely. It meant a lot to me because it really, I believe, was the platform where hip hop really went to the world. You know, for the most part, everything was pretty local,
right?
Maybe even national. But now you were able to go global, and I know that because we still get checks.
All right. Gotta talk about that.
Yeah, so that's an interesting story. But, you know, that's what it really meant to me. And myself, Lisa Lee, and Sha Rock being the first girls on screen in the movie meant a lot because we got an opportunity to inspire women all over the world to basically say, you can do it too.
Right. Now, the song that you guys performed, Us Girls Can Boogie Too, that's the hook.
Yep.
That's a proclamation as well.
Absolutely.
How did that song come about?
Well, the song came about because the people that was involved in Beach Street, Harry Belafonte, the actor and activist, and one of the producers decided that they would put it together. I'm not exactly sure who wrote it. I think Ross Leverson, don't quote me on it.
Okay.
But they basically just wanted us to do the rap part.
Right.
And so we kind of put that together, and really that's how our name came about. We weren't called Us Girls.
Right.
But while we were filming the movie, it was a lot of, where the Us Girls at? Where the Us Girls? Where them girls at? Where those girls at?
Right.
And so before you knew it, it just got morphed into, that's the Us Girls. But basically, you know, they wanted us to put our raps together and just go forward, and that's what we did.
Okay. Now, you know, we're talking the 80s now, but you do, in fact, go back to the 70s. Now, a lot of folks don't have a clue about what the 70s was like. If we did, you know, we just kind of heard maybe some old tapes or some, you know, some interviews, but the narratives don't always go back. And then there was that show, The Get Out. Get Down, excuse me. And that was, you know.
Yeah, a lot of people kind of felt it was a little more glamorized.
Yeah.
It wasn't as gritty, which actually was the original screenplay for Beach Street. It was more gritty than you actually saw it.
Right.
And so when Steve Hager wrote it, and his book is on Amazon, but when he wrote it, it had a grit to it. But by the time, you know, they bought the rights and did all of that kind of stuff, and they kind of sweetened it up too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Hollywood.
Speaking on that, Beat Street, you know, when I talk to some of the other pioneers, they're like, oh, I hated it. And I was like, what?
And that's why.
Yeah.
That's why, because at the end of the day, it wasn't real for us because we coming straight from the street with kids, you know, so it kind of had that Hollywood feel to it. But you know what? I understand it because I'm thinking that's how they had to do it to sell it.
Yeah, right.
So it still opened up the door.
Right.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the 70s and hip hop and what it was, what it meant to be involved in this culture at such an early stage.
Well, the first thing is when you look at the landscape of the Bronx, there's a particular term that a lot of people hear all the time, which is the Bronx is burning. And so the backdrop to that is at that particular time, a lot of the landlords basically wanted to get rid of the buildings because tenants wasn't paying the bills, and it was just a lot of problems going on. And the Bronx is probably one of the most impoverished areas in New York City out of the 5 boroughs. And so what landlords started doing was basically just burning the buildings to kind of get the people out. And so from that, the landscape, unlike Harlem, which is where I'm from, had a lot of abandoned buildings that were burnt out. The Bronx literally had buildings burnt down to the ground.
Right.
So you're talking about rubble everywhere. I mean, you could literally walk down a block and see 4 to 5, 6 blocks. Just all rubble. No candy stores, no parks, no nothing. And so that was a very tough time because then you had the gangs. And so people were very afraid to even walk down the street. It was a very, very trying time, you know, very chaotic. And so in terms of hip hop, when Kool Herc started that in 73, it actually became not just a choice, but it became a necessity. We didn't have anything to do. Like the politicians stopped putting the money in the Bronx, so we didn't have a lot of centers to go to. We didn't have a lot of music programs. You know what I'm saying? Things that kids kind of grew up on in the 80s. We didn't have that because they shut it all down. Yeah, they kind of just wrote the Bronx off. So when the music came, we all gravitated to the music.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, I interviewed Grandmaster Flash, and he was like, man, the Bronx was burning, but it wasn't all burning.
No, it wasn't. And that's a great point because a lot of people don't make that point. Primarily, the area that really got the most affected was the South Bronx. And that's the part where I'm from. Flash is from there, Theodore is from there, and some other people. But uptown, like further up in the Bronx, you had a lot of homes. But where we were, they were predominantly walk-up tenement buildings and the projects. Like in my area, there's probably 56 projects.
Wow.
Yeah, so when you came out in those areas, it was tough.
Okay. Now, a lot is made about the guys in hip hop. Before we talk about how you started rhyming, what were you seeing before you started? What, you know, artistically, who were you looking at?
Well,
what did you witness?
Okay, well, let me just start here. I'm originally from Harlem, so I wasn't born and raised in the Bronx. I actually got pushed to Harlem through a fire. So we moved on the west side of the Bronx for about 6 months, and then we moved over to Webster Houses. And I'm just kind of like in my house. It's July or the end of June. The windows is up. It's hot. That's when it really used to be hot in the summer. It's not that hot like it used to be. Really? We were kids. But, you know, the windows are up and everything, and I heard the music, and I'm like, what is that? And then I heard this guy kind of talking over the music, and I'm like, what is that? And I'm 14. So this is something I had never really seen in Harlem before. I wouldn't say it wasn't there. I just didn't see it that early. So at 14, I come downstairs, and it's like kids everywhere. You know, they're on the turntables. They're playing this music I wasn't familiar with. I had not heard before. And these DJs were out there. It was DJ Abel and Bear. Not really that popular, but they were the local DJs right there in the center of the projects. And that was basically my first exposure to hip-hop.
Right, okay. So what got you started?
The music. I'm a church girl. And so I used to write poetry, won my first poetry contest at 10 years old at the PAL in Harlem. So in my mind, when I first saw the guy on the mic, because everything is going on. They got the breakdancing going on. They got the DJ going on. But the guy on the mic, I gravitated toward that because I'm a writer. I talk. I sing. You know, all of those kind of things. So I'm looking at him like, I can do that.
Right.
Because I'm thinking, what is rap? Rhythm and poetry. That's the way I look at it.
Right.
And so I figured I could do that. What is he doing? Saying words to music.
Yeah.
How difficult can it be?
Right.
You know, because it's really like poetry.
Yeah. And
basically, I just decided I'm going to go upstairs and write some rhymes.
Right.
They wasn't big. You know, I wasn't spitting like Rakim. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But, you know, I just kind of wrote a few lines, and that's how I started it.
Okay. Now, I heard a rhyme. A tape, I guess, or whatever, a recording of you and your brother going back and forth. And I was like, yo, they are flowing. I was like, hold up. Let me find out.
Yeah. My brother, I kind of brought my brother into it. I was like, once I heard Flash and Theodore, you know, because the guys that I first got introduced to, they were kind of just local, wasn't really doing much. But then when I'm coming from Harlem, so it's all new. So when I kind of heard people say, yo, Flash is going to be up at 63 Park, I'm like, where's that? Man, I got up there and saw Flash and saw Theodore. I came back home like, Daryl, you got to come up there. And then that's how he got into it. And then we just started writing rhymes together as a brother and sister crew.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now I want to pull this docket, this notebook you have of you as a young teen. Look at her, y'all.
With them tight curls. They don't wear curls like that no more.
Now, in this notebook, you have a lot of flyers, and you know, you got Soul Sonic, Freak Boogie. Now, what's that? Is that before?
Basically, this
Soul
is
Sonic
1978. This is February 1978. And the reason why I pulled this flyer is to basically kind of show that, you know, some of the titles that we use for the flyers.
Right.
And so there was this dance called the Freak back in the day. It was a lot like twerking.
Okay.
Believe it or not. As a matter of fact, if you look at this one right here, look how close. Look what they doing on the dance floor. Show the people what they doing on the dance floor.
I know about this.
The Freak. And trust me, guys was like, you coming home with me after this. Okay. But I wanted to just kind of just start there and just kind of talk a little bit, just to kind of show you how you know there's no faces on the flyers. I'm a flyerologist, so I'm really detailed when I do teach about flyers, and everything is handwritten. You see what I'm saying? You see the graphics, they're drawing things, and then this is actually my first flyer. I had been rapping for a while, but you know, kind of took a little time to get there.
And you were calling yourself the Grand Mistress.
The Grand Mistress of the ceremony. You know what it was? I kept hearing, you know, the Grand Master, the Grand Wizard, the Grand Al Capone, the Grand with the guys. I said, you know what? I'm going to be the Grand Mistress. Right. And I think I probably was the only girl that really put a title to my name.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna definitely look at that a little more when we're finished this interview. So how was it competitively speaking, because obviously at that time things were it was a smaller community, and your skills had to be up to par.
100. Very competitive. I often tell people that battling and competitiveness is the DNA of Bronx MCs, DJs, break boys. I mean, if you walked up in a park and somebody said they gonna battle you, you better prepare, you better make sure you rehearse like 200 times at home, because once you hit that part, it was over. So everything, as a matter of fact, through the battles, this is how things became very innovative, because it was like everybody was trying to be better than the next. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things I liked about the battles back in the day is you battled everybody. It wasn't like girls just battling girls or guys battling. It's like whoever is on the lineup is getting battled. You know what I'm saying? I was in a lineup with Lovebug Starsky and Busy Bee. It didn't matter if it was a girl or a guy. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, that's what we did. I will tell anybody, anytime you're dealing with anybody from the Bronx, I can't necessarily speak for people in Manhattan and other boroughs, but maybe Harlem. But Bronx and Harlem, battle all the way. Even today, if we say a rhyme, we going to polish and demolish you. I promise.
Okay.
I promise you.
All right. I believe you. And trust me, I believe you. Listen, I was observant at that time, and Millie Mel was, for me, the first original greatest, because a lot of reason because of Beat Street, because that Beat Street breakdown rhyme was.
You got a
It
chance
was like
to
a
see
prophecy.
his skills. Yeah, that too. Exactly. That's a great word. But you got a chance to see his skills, and that's what I'm saying. Remember, Beat Street is 1984. Most of us the pioneers had started in 77, 78. So we have been doing this for a while. And remember, because we're in the parks first, we've been doing this like 3 and 4 times a week.
Right.
Because people are bringing their sound systems outside. So by the time you see Millie Mel in 1984 in Beach Street, he is the wordsmith par none.
True.
I mean, he is the master of it. Absolutely.
Now, the conversation comes, you call yourself the first female soloist. Is that correct? Okay. Who else was around? Other ladies?
Well, definitely the girls that was in B Street with me, Sharrock, Lisa Lee, Pebbly Pooh, Sweet and Sour. You had the Mercedes ladies was out during that time. You also had another crew that most people don't talk about, females, Inner City Disco. And then you had some, before the Mercedes ladies actually started rapping and DJing, they were actually a girl empowerment crew. So they would kind of come to the jams with their sweatshirts on with their names on, the Mercedes ladies. So they kind of rolled like that. And then Uptown, you had the Sisters Disco, who was a part of Breakout and Barron with the Brothers Disco.
Okay.
So you had girls that was out there.
Gotcha. What about the conversation? The conversation about who was first. First, I've read our good friend Kathy's book about the queens of hip hop, the essential history of women in hip hop.
Great book.
Right, great book, and she doesn't state who. What's your take on it?
Well, I think she doesn't state who simply because, a few girls claim it. And for the most part, everybody's claim is basically correct, I would say. Sharrock says that she's the first female MC in the hip-hop culture. And, of course, there could be, some disagreement to that. But I would definitely say, speaking on her behalf, she is the most prominent and the most successful. The other girls kind of fall back, and there are many reasons because of that.
Yeah.
But she's in the forefront. You have Elisa Lee, who's basically the queen of the Zulu Nation, under Bambaataa. Everybody kind of took their stake where they were. All of us outside of the Mercedes ladies started in a male crew. So I break away and become the first girl on the stage.
Right.
So you may have been in the park on the mic and you did it 2 times, but we all started like that as nomad MCs moving around. But when you check those flyers, and the flyers don't lie, remember I told you, Chuck, you're going to see Debbie D in a lineup as a soloist.
As a soloist. Okay. Enough said. I salute all of you guys.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm so
absolutely.
thankful for the, the history, but I'm also really happy to see that you're still doing it, still doing your thing, still relevant in your, career. One thing I wanted to ask you is, hip hop is over 40 years old. It's probably, I think, 45 or so, depending on who you talk to, because some people will say it's even older. What are your thoughts on hip-hop culture now?
Ooh, that's a great question. A lot of evolution going on, basically from the way that it started. But that's with anything, anything you start 40 years later is going to look a little different. I like, if I talk about the girls a little bit, I like the fact that you have a lot of creativity among women.
Yeah.
We don't have to be cloned. We don't all have to be the same. You know what I'm saying? So you see more women on the forefront and more women doing their own thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that happened early on is that, like I said earlier, we were all either in a male crew or connected to a male crew. Now girls are kind of standing on their own.
Absolutely.
Even outside of record labels. They're doing their own thing just on social media. And then you have more girls in the forefront with the fashion. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we dressed okay, but them girls are,
don't be
but
too humble.
we wasn't wearing Tom Ford and, Balenciaga, them girls. I mean, I got Lon Vons right now, but I wouldn't have had these on in the 80s,
Yeah.
But now the fashion is really coming to the forefront, and girls are just really like putting it all out there.
Yeah. Last year was an incredible year for women in hip hop. In fact, I think that they set the tone for a lot of the creativity we saw, everyone from Rhapsody to Lizzo,
Absolutely. Yes.
to even Cardi B, Nicki. I mean, you know, it really goes on and on.
Yeah, and the underground girls. I mean,
Yeah.
you got Cyrock.
Oh my God, I love Cyrock.
Absolutely. No Name. You know, I like the fact that she started her own book club, which I think is phenomenal. I'm an educator, so I like that. I mean, you have girls that are really doing. They're just being creative. You know, Missy Elliott, when you look at her, always an element of surprise.
Yeah.
Definitely showing their leadership. So I think it's great.
Absolutely. How can hip hop how can the community, how can we do better?
Well, I would kind of go back to the girls again and just kind of give the girls some space, you know, and let us in on a leadership level, you know, hear our thoughts, what we can do.
Yeah.
You know, I was just reading Kathy's book about Little Kim, and she talked a little bit about how Biggie kind of created and shaped and molded her, and it wasn't until he passed that she kind of came into her own. So it took all of that time. So I think at this particular time, and specifically with the girls, that we really need to allow them some space. And let me just go here. I think we need to kind of, somebody said it earlier, I don't remember all the new MCs that's out now, you'll probably know who I'm talking about, but he talked about how we really need to begin to look at the lyrics we're putting out because of these early deaths that are happening to a lot of our young people, you know, with the drug epidemic, the opioid epidemic that's going on. And I think hip hop may have to blame for that because you're putting the lyrics out there, you know, so they're becoming more open to suicide and things like that. I think we need to be more conscious as to what we say.
Yeah, I think you've seen a lot of artists, not a lot, but a few. Juicy J, for example, from 3 6 Mafia, he's apologized
Exactly.
for some of his past transgressions.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think I respect that, but I also would respect, you know, perhaps putting a little more effort into that, you know, really going out there, starting an organization, or maybe mentoring these kids a little bit more, finding a way to substantially change things. So it's like putting, you know,
I could see something like that because you have to kind of think to yourself, you know, with the platform that he has, how can he be a little bit more hands-on with that? So that would be a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you have an organization called Us Girls Can.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
Women empowerment again. It's really a spinoff of the name Us Girls with the group, but just basically saying to girls that you have a voice and you're able to use that voice, and your voice can be in anything. It could be in music, it could be, you know, writing, it could be behind the camera, you know. And again, just going back to the song in Beat Street, because that's how the idea came up.
Yeah.
Us girls can boogie too. I say now us girls can do it too.
Yeah, updated.
You know, we can kind of do whatever we want to do. So what I do is I do an empowerment speeches. I move around to churches of various organizations, charities, and things like that, and empowering women.
Now, you're in the ministry as well, which I find somewhat not surprising. You've grown and matured. Talk about how that evolution came about.
Well, I'm the first rapper turned preacher.
Okay.
I've been in it 30
Curtis
years.
Blow, before Curtis Blow?
I'm 30 years in, before
All right.
Curtis Blow, before Run DMC. And this is what happens a lot because the girls get slighted. But I am the first. I'm the first one, rapper turned preacher, and the first person in hip-hop with an earned doctorate.
Got you. All
so
right.
when Debbie D was off the scene and everybody's like, well, where is she?
Yeah.
It's all of that going on because at the end of the day, it's very difficult to do all of that and stand on a stage at the same time.
Yeah, sure.
You know, shout out to Megan Thee Stallion, but it takes a lot to do that, you know, and kind of run your career too. But basically became a Christian, gave my life to the Lord, and God, at the end of the day, put the mic back in my hand, put me back on the stage, and still bringing that fire, but with a positive message.
Definitely. When did you start rapping?
I think right after the Juice Crew, like 1987.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of put out 2 records. They weren't that popular. I think my most popular record with the Juice Crew was Evolution, and that's one of my favorite
That's
records.
an interesting record.
It is.
You rap as Harriet Tubman.
Man, that record. And, you know, Shantae was like the prolific girl. She was the queen of the Juice Crew doing her thing. But when they got ready for that record, Fly Ty called me up, and he was like, Debbie, I need you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in a law firm as a legal secretary on my job, and I'm like, what? what? And I called my girlfriend. I was living in Harlem, had my first apartment, all of that. I said, go to the Schomburg and, get that information for me. And she put it underneath my door. I went home and I wrote, man, and now the movie is out. And I'm like, man, y'all need this record right here.
They should re-release it.
Yeah, it's a great record. And as a matter of fact, the reason why I like it is because, as you see now, a lot of young kids are able to learn about our black history through rap.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's Martin Luther King, it's Malcolm X, it's Maya Angelou, and Harriet Tubman. Yep. You can learn about them.
Yeah, I learned, a lot of my black pride was from hip-hop. That song I remember, Run DMC had Proud to Be Black, and forget about KRS-One, Public Enemy, all those guys, really. I mean, obviously I had good parenting and parents and things that introduced me.
You meant to say you went to school every day is what you meant to say.
Right? I sure did. You want to know a secret about me?
Because you could have good parents, but that don't mean you went to that class.
I didn't miss one day of school.
Really?
Not a single day.
In high school?
No school.
Wow.
No school.
Congratulations to you.
Yep. Thank you.
See
I'm
you,
proud of it.
Chuck.
I was a nerd, y'all. No, but you know what it was? The truth is, once I got older, we used to have these fierce hip hop conversations.
Wow.
I loved to go to school because we would at lunchtime, we would talk about hip hop the whole time. We would debate who was the best.
Now, you know what's so funny? In your time frame, y'all talked about hip hop in school. In our time frame, they were beating on chairs and desks, and people were basically finding other crew members through their school. I went to Norman Thomas, which is not too far from here, when it used to be open on 33rd and Park. But you know who went to my school? Mo D.
Cool Mo D?
That's right. Was sitting in the class with me. I was like, I remember the first day walking in there like, oh my God, that's Mo D back there.
Oh, wait. So he was...
Yeah, the Mo D.
Oh, he was already famous.
Well, he was, yeah. And I was like, oh my God. And he was
Wow.
just all quiet, laid back. And I'm looking at him like, I just saw you in Harlem World Saturday. Now you don't know me?
Right. That's
and then we
crazy.
had music in the lunchroom in my high school.
Music.
That's
playing.
right. DJ Easy Lee from the Treacherous Street was one of the DJs. And we would get on the mic and everything, Chuck.
Oh, no, we
was
definitely
the
didn't
only
have that.
school that did that.
Oh, we didn't have that at all. We bang on the table a little bit. I knew how to do funky drummer on the lunchroom table, but no.
Yeah, we
that's
had
crazy.
real microphones, turntables. Yeah,
Wow.
so that whole education and music piece kind of came together. It was hot.
Man.
And this was 78, 79, and 80.
Okay.
81. I graduated in 81.
Wow. Now, you mentioned the Juice Crew in passing, but for those that don't know, the Juice Crew, for me, is the prototype for pretty much crews, period. Even though there were crews before that, but the modern day
crews
crew.
where you have individuals, because
Right.
we always had the crews.
Yeah.
So everybody's just basically a soloist.
Yeah. So you had Cool G Rap, Big Daddy King, MC Shan,
Biz
Markie,
yeah.
Roxanne Shante, Master Ace,
Yeah.
Craig G, and
Tragedy,
so on and so forth. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now you were
Powerhouses. Well, actually, what happened was when we did B Street, I had won a battle, and that's how I met Fly Ty. I think I came in third place at Harlem World, and I met Fly Ty. So when me and the girls hooked up, from the movie, we was like, maybe we need to get a manager. And so I was like, you know what? I remember this guy, Fly Ty. So we met him at Broadway International. So to make the story short, Fly Ty managed us girls first.
Okay, gotcha.
And Shantae's stuff had not even come out yet.
Yeah.
So we were actually the first girls that he had.
Okay.
And then when the group broke up, I stayed on.
Okay.
So so I kind of came before she did.
Now, were us girls friends? Were y'all really friends, or were
Well,
y'all?
Lisa and Shaw were friends.
Okay.
I just kind of knew them because, of course, you just knew the girls that were out there and stuff. But, from things I read and things they said, they had always been close.
Okay.
And then when their crews were going through a lot of transition, that's when I was a soloist, rising just, all over the city or whatever every weekend, doing my thing with my DJ, Wanda D. Shout out to her, who was on the beatbox and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't remember all of that stuff. But, so as they went through their transition, Sha-Rock reached out to me and she was like, hey, Debbie, what do you think about all three of us getting together? And I was like, well, let me holler back at you. It ain't taking long to think to myself, Debbie D, Sha-Rock, and Lisa Lee. That'll work. Because we were the baddest girls. Yeah. Everybody knew us. You know what I'm saying? Sure. So us coming together, that was girl empowerment right there. I mean, people, I think I have one of the flyers where people literally will put all three of us on the flyer just to have all three of us on a flyer. Right. You know what I'm saying? So
So how did Us Girls end? Was it a moment or did it just kind of phase out?
It kind of just faded out. I just basically went back to being a soloist. And honestly, I mean, I think we all were like strong leaders, so we kind of probably clashed here and there. But, for the most part, everybody did their own thing, and we're still doing our own thing. And when it needs be, we come together and do what we got to do.
Okay. Now, I gotta get this from your perspective.
Sure.
We ask a lot of people this question. Who are your top 5 dead or alive?
Ooh, dead or alive. Okay. MCs, right? Well, I got to come up.
You can't include yourself, though.
No.
Because, people do that.
Well, I'm the fly girl, so I don't, who would I say first? I would have to say Millie Mel first, because he is the first.
Okay.
When it comes to long rhymes, spitting,
Yeah.
Millie Mel is the first. I would say Cass second, because a lot of people,
Cass.
a lot of people don't know about him. He was a DJ first. Cass comes in real early in the culture. So Grandmaster Cass, of course, I have to say Mo D.
Cool Mo D.
The coolest of them all,
yes,
right?
Indeed.
Okay, who am I going to? Rakim.
Rakim.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm a lyricist. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so let me come in with a girl. Let me go current and say right now, Rhapsody.
Rhapsody, that's what's up.
Let me go current.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a lot of girls I could have said, but it's 2020.
Yeah.
If you want to see clear and you want to be that girl that's really know how to put the pen to the paper, check out Rhapsody.
Yeah, Rhapsody's
She's what's
incredible.
Up. Absolutely.
We've been trying to get Rhapsody in One World Studio. Having a little difficulty. We're gonna have to work harder in 2020.
Yeah, she gonna come
get her
through.
in here.
She gonna come through.
Yeah, her. Spotify does it lists all your top songs of the previous
Oh yeah, I
year.
did see that. Yes.
Yeah, and Rhapsody was all in my.
Yeah, and you know what? That's because she's focused. She's concentrated. That's probably one of the reasons why she hasn't come through, because she's focused on what she's doing. And you really have to take the time and say, this is what I'm doing right now, and let me focus on this, and I can kind of do that other stuff a little bit later, because you can't write on that level. I'm a writer by profession, but you can't write on that level unless you're focused. You can't be at the mall and hanging out with everybody and think you're going to split those lyrics like that.
True,
So shout out to her for being focused.
Okay. Now, what about evolution? You have successfully evolved. Your energy is awesome.
Thank you.
I've found a lot of older school, or whatever you want to call it, have
Pioneers.
difficulty evolving. What advice would you give anyone actually? I mean, transition can be tough sometimes.
It can be tough. I think one of the reasons why I was fortunate is because, one, let me just backtrack here. Coming from Harlem, I came from Harlem during the epidemic of heroin. So I literally stepped over dope fiends to go to school. I went to Watley on 114th Street between 8th and 7th, and I had my English teacher, I think it was, or 8th grade teacher, he only had one. And then he noticed my ability to be smart and, academically strong. And he basically said to me, you know what, Deborah, if you focus, because he had a lot going on during that time. I mean, these are days of Frank Lucas. There's a lot in Harlem. Yeah. And if you focus, my father was a pimp. So there's a lot going on. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to focus. When I went to Norman Thomas, it had a co-op program. Yeah. And I decided I wanted to be a lawyer, because I used to watch Columbo and, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so I moved into the law firm. So even when I did our shows, even when we got jerked, because you may hear that term a lot, and we didn't get our money, or we only got like $25 a night, I had my job to fall back on. Right. So even though a lot of people went through those struggles, I didn't feel it as much because I got paid. But one of the things I do say to my pioneer brothers and sisters, and to anybody, now you have the internet, so you really don't have an excuse. I'm still evolving, as you said, getting back into the game, not necessarily focusing on destiny, but focusing in on my legacy. Right. I'm coming in now as a flyerologist, bringing my academic skills to the table. So you really just have to tap into, a lot of the pioneers can write their own story. Yeah. Or get somebody to write their story. There's income in that. Yeah. Get into classrooms, into universities. There's different things they can do and still bounce back. God is a God not of a second chance, but of another chance. Yeah. And if you put your mind to it, he'll be willing to work with you. Okay. It's now, possible.
You're working on a book, correct?
Yes, I am. Talking to publishers and agents. I just think that there's not enough material out there that is specifically from pioneers. There's a lot of books. I mean, everybody's coming out with books and memoirs, but most of them are basically written from people later on in the culture. And so one of the things I wanted to do was basically write a book that really just kind of shares the landscape. What was it like? I want to bring you in a jam. I want you to know what it was like, who was doing what, why they did it. You know what I'm saying? The transition of crews, who was where, you know, like I just talked about Cass. A lot of people don't know that he was a DJ before he was an MC. I mean, there was a lot going on there. So that's really what I'm going to be bringing to the table.
Okay. And you're a part of the Universal Hip Hop Museum, is that correct? Still a part of that?
Yeah, I mean, they have me down as a board member, as a pioneer, of course. You know, they always give us a nod and credit or whatever. I was just there. I brought Kathy there, gave her a private tour of the Bronx.
Yeah.
And also brought her to the museum. It's amazing. As a matter of fact, we did a podcast right there in the museum.
Nice.
It's a pop-up, but the big one is coming, I think, in about 3 or 4 years.
Gotcha. Are you I think I heard you're mentioned in the the African American Museum.
Yes. In the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
On the second floor, they have a display, a hip-hop display of the pioneers. Because that whole floor deals with like the street level, everybody from grassroots. So they highlight hip-hop, and then there's a plaque there. And for the most part, all of the girls that's featured on that plaque are basically from the 70s.
Gotcha.
They're the earliest girls.
Yeah. One thing we've touched on throughout this interview is, you know, sort of the streets. You mentioned the gangs and things that people don't say much about. Well, actually, there was a period of time when there was. Now feels like we're almost getting back to that. Like there's not. Well, let me stop stuttering.
I hope not.
Let me stop stuttering. But there are Bloods and Crips in New York.
Yeah,
now.
I just thought about that.
It's a bit different. But from your vantage point, you know, when you start talking about Frank Lucas and you know Alpo and Rich Porter, all these people, how much were these street luminaries involved in hip hop? Did you witness that a lot?
Well, you witnessed it walking down the street.
Yeah.
You know, I lived in Webster Houses, and it's a part of Claremont Village. So Claremont Village is Webster Houses, Butler, and Morris Houses, which is the 9. So the 9 had a 9 crew. Yeah. And you could literally walk through there and they're going to take your sneakers off your feet. And you're not going to say anything. And you're not coming back with anybody. Right. You're not even going to think about coming back. Right. It was that notorious. And then you had the Casanovas, you know, all over, as they shouted, you know. Then you had the Zulus over there where Bambaataa was. Yeah. So, you know, everybody was kind of marking off their turf. Yeah. And then you had like those major gangs, the Samurais. You know, I can't think of all of those guys. But it was difficult to walk down the street. Wow. It was serious. So, I mean, it was serious. Bambaataa was the catalyst, and shout out to him for really kind of bringing these guys together and say we need to stop this killing and stop making people be afraid to come outside, because you know one of the things I was saying to you earlier with the maps, a lot of people didn't go into certain areas because of the gangs. They would literally come into your jam outside, shoot guns up in the air, pop, pop, pop. Everybody scatter, run away. You know what they would do? Rob. Do you know what they would do?
Tell me.
Grab your speakers, drag them out, and throw them into their event. They would take your whole sound system. Oh, man. Oh, they was gangster. It was listen, the boogie down was nothing to play with. It was crazy during that time. But we survivors.
Yeah. I had some conversations with Crazy Legs, and he told me some stuff off camera, and I was like,
yeah, it was not. Wow. Listen, we're survivors. We got the marks to show it. And I think out of that, talking about influence, now that I think about it, I think out of that basically demonstrates why we have this battle spirit. We come out of a whole entire borough of people just competing. You know, the gangs was competing, so the crews started competing. You know what I'm saying? And then the MCs and the DJs, and it just kind of trickled down. So that's why I say I think it's a part of our DNA. Yeah, okay. Well, what's next for you? The book. Okay. You know, it's a lot to do, as you know, to write. Definitely. You know, I'm putting in like 15 hours every day, and It's a lot of work, but I think it's something that people will definitely enjoy. I'm also looking forward to moving more into an academic level. I really want to take my time and really just kind of step by step give people some details about the flyers, the real history. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes when people ask questions and I listen to the interviews, I'm like, it's so isolated, but if you put context to it, like you just asked about, these gangs, that put context to what was going on around those times. You really didn't just go outside and decided, like Bambaataa was in Bronx River. I think I went over there one time.
Right.
Because all you heard was, you go to Bronx River, they're going to kill you. They're going to stab you. They're going to beat you up. So we're 14. So nobody went over there, So they was like a crew to themselves. When Bambaataa came to a party, it was like 100. He wrote 100 people deep.
Wow. Yeah.
It was crazy.
That's
So I
crazy.
kind of want to put some context, put some color to it, and just show them peace, love, unity, and having fun is what hip hop is
Okay,
about.
we gotta have you back here,
I would love
so
to.
we can add more context or your wisdom, to our platform, because we don't do it enough, I don't think, and I think that everyone needs to understand where we came from, even from a hip hop is Black history,
Absolutely.
and we have to tell our own stories.
Yes, we do. Yeah. And please, tap into my brothers and sisters who are pioneers. It's sad to have to say, but we are the seniors of the bunch now in the culture, and we're getting older. Yeah. And so if we don't get those stories and document those stories now,
absolutely,
we're going to be in trouble. So please reach out to them. I appreciate you for bringing me on, and I hope I've inspired some people. And
you've inspired me, first of all.
To do what?
Yeah, to boogie, for one. But no, seriously. Nah, but literally from that moment, a lot of us were inspired. I mean, before that, but definitely those seminal movies, or even Rapper's Delight, for example, people
There's a lot to be said about that.
A lot.
And again, they show up in 79 and people think that they're the first group. And they don't realize there's a whole movement going on in the boogie down. Until you get these stories on film or in between the pages of a book, a lot of people don't know. So we're going to leave it to you as a journalist.
We're going to do it.
Jigsaw.
Thank you very much.